Well, hello, Vanguard community. Today is Monday, June the 8th, 2020. I'm Jennifer Methvin, the Chancellor at Arkansas State University, Beebe, and this is Doing Things Differently and Learning Something New. I have the privilege of having with me today one of the folks who's been very involved in keeping us rolling during the public health pandemic. Welcome, Jason Henry, to our show with us today. And Jason, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
So I am Jason Henry, and I'm the Director of Student Engagement. I work in the Student Success Center, and coming up next week will be my 10-year anniversary at ASU-Beebe. So I have been a member of the Vanguard community now for a decade. Prior to ASU-Beebe, I worked at Pulaski Tech, where I helped open the very first advising center and launch the very first new student orientation program. Those were some of my duties there. And prior to that, I was at Three Rivers College in Malvern, where I was the retention specialist. And so I worked a lot with early alert programs and the Title III project. So we did first-year interest groups, college survival skills with our academically underprepared students. And so been probably in higher ed about 16, 17 years now, full-time.
My goodness, I wouldn't have guessed that. You don't look of the age to have been in higher ed that long, Jason. Well, I appreciate you being with us today. And I think this is along of episode 12, 13, 14, something like that. So I think we have the basic idea, but basically 5 questions, about 15 minutes, where we focus on the ways in which faculty, staff, and students have been impacted by the current public health crisis with the coronavirus. And so if you're ready, we'll just jump right in.
I'm ready.
Okay. Well, you know, we've been at this working remotely for quite some time since March. Talk a little bit about your role at the college and how things have changed for you in the work that you do in supporting our students at ASU-Beebe.
So the areas in which I work include testing services, orientation programs, mental health counseling, career services, and transfer services. And I would think that predominantly we were very traditional in the ways in which we served our students. You know, the students would either come to the office or call and make an appointment, and then they would come back to the office, most likely, to receive one of those services. And so during the pandemic, we had to instantly kind of shift our strategy in how we served our students. And so we immediately had to identify ways in which we could implement technology, use email systems, use Zoom, use the different platforms within Office 365 like Forms and the SharePoint. We started utilizing the campus mobile app more regularly. And so, you know, I think one of the biggest things that we had to do was reframe and reshift kind of the ways in which we had operated before. Very traditional format, and we had to move to a non-traditional format pretty rapidly. I think we've been really successful in that. I think the most difficult part was the testing component. You know, testing services really provides our students either the opportunity to start strong with their placement scores, getting in the appropriate class that meets their academic needs. And then for a lot of our students who may have been in a developmental course and they're trying to advance to a non-developmental level course, you know, at the end of the semester, they take a lot of placement exams to try to test out of that. And so I think that the most challenging part was the testing services. There was a lot that we had to think of as we were trying to offer those services remotely. Not only did we have to think about when we have multiple students at one time that want to test, how we move them through waiting rooms in Zoom, but we had to think a lot about students' privacy and confidentiality. You know, students are inviting us into their spaces, into their bedrooms, into their living rooms, into their homes. And so we had to be very aware and thoughtful in how we respected that student's privacy so that we didn't accidentally invite other students into the waiting room with that student. And so that we were sensitive to maybe some of the types of lives that our students lead, particularly some of those students that may live in poverty and stuff and may not be as open to sharing their private spaces at home as they would be at the office.
Yeah, so So talk a little bit more about how that has worked, for instance, in counseling.
Yeah, so we got very lucky because we had already been thinking about offering mental health counseling via telecounseling, via Zoom appointments. But in the state of Arkansas, the licensed professional counselors have to have a special certification in order to do that. And so Abe Chambers and Jennifer Downing Rutledge, our two licensed professional counselors in the Student Success Center, had already applied to get that certification. But Governor Hutchinson was very nice to immediately waive that requirement as soon as the pandemic started. And so that really opened up a lot of avenues for us. So with mental health counseling, we had a lot of students that had regular standing appointments with their respective counselors, and they didn't want to be able to miss those appointments. And so that provided us that opportunity. But we saw a huge uptick in students as the weeks went on towards the end of the semester. The anxiety was building with students, the uncertainty about what was going on in life. Many of our students had lost their jobs. Their children were working AMI packets at home, and they were having to share computer and screen time with their children. So the competition of time, the uncertainty about finances, a lot of our students were not used to taking online classes. And so there was that added layer of stress. And so we saw a huge spike in students reaching out to our services for mental health counseling. We became very active in the mobile app as well. Part of mental health counseling is breaking the stigma associated with it, that it's okay to say, hey, I'm struggling today, and just talking to somebody that can help me kind of decompress and think through my feelings and help me get on a more level, healthy mental health approach. So with mental health services, we did get lucky with Governor Hutchinson going ahead and waiving that requirement. And so we became very active and very busy very quickly.
Yeah, one of the things y'all did on the mobile app that I really appreciated was that weekly check-in with the hearts and where are you? And it forced, in posting, it forced folks who posted to just think for a minute, really, am I okay? Am I getting to a panic spot, including me? And I would suggest that many students who didn't post and wouldn't post because of what they would have to say that they felt were just they became self-aware and were more able to cope or reach out for help because of that.
Yeah, so just asking students to drop a heart emoji as a comment, for a lot of students, one of the things that we struggle with the Student Success Center mental health counseling is students are afraid to ask for help, and so the anxiety that builds from just pulling into the parking lot and walking in the building and then walking through that front door and filling out some intake paperwork. I mean, it just compounds on the student. And so it was very easy for them just to drop a heart emoji. Here's a blue heart that says, I'm doing great today. Here's a red heart that says, I'm struggling. I kind of need some help. And it was wonderful that so many different people would participate with that little meme that we would put in the mobile app. Having faculty and staff and other students participating, I think really encouraged other students. And one of the things that we did in that mobile app is we decided early that any student that indicated that they were starting to struggle or they really needed somebody to reach out to for support, one of our mental health counselors immediately reaches out to that student via email and telephone and says, hey, I saw that heart emoji and we just want to let you know that we care. And if you want to talk for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, an hour, let us know and we're here for you. And I can't tell you, when we first started, I had to keep this huge spreadsheet because we were so busy with students needing mental health services and stuff. And so, I created an Excel spreadsheet so I could track who the students were, what their concern was, follow up with the student, did we resolve the issues with that student, did we get them a treatment plan, what was the progression plan for that individual student. And the feedback we got from students was so incredibly positive. A lot of students would say, I don't really need to talk to anybody, but just the fact that you reached out means a lot to me. And the weeks following, I would just out of the blue get an email from a student I had reached out to 3 weeks ago, and they would say, I just wanted to follow up with you and say, I really appreciate that. So I think that those small acts of kindness really go a long way with a lot of our students.
Yeah, and communication. I think they appreciated the communication. Well, do you think, Jason, that we've learned anything that is going to make us better at Student Services as we move forward?
I know that I've learned a great deal in how I approach our processes. I've had to critically examine, why do we do this way? What is the purpose in doing it this way? And if we were to tweak it, modify it, in what ways would it enhance the service to the student? And so I think a lot of things we do just because it's tradition. I think we do it because it's what we know best, I think that moving forward, I'm going to be more mindful about our students' learning styles, our students' communication preferences. I have found that a lot of students feel much more comfortable hidden, if you will, behind their computer screen versus being face-to-face with me in my office. And there's a comfort level there with a lot of our students that I really just didn't think about before. A lot of students, I think, really appreciate the new outlook on policies that we have implemented and kind of our approaches to things. So I think if nothing else, one of the things I've learned is to critically examine why we do the things that we do, how we do them, how the decision was made to do them, and in what ways can we, moving forward, can we use technology to enhance the quality of service to our students.
And be a little bit more flexible.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a very structured person. And so I like order and routine, and I like to be able to anticipate some of the challenges that may be ahead or some of the needs of the students we may have. And this kind of wiped that slate clean with that. And so it really forced me to be outside of my comfort zone and outside of my box and my element a little bit. And so I think that was probably one of the silver linings in all of this was, to do some introspection of myself and say, in what ways can I adapt and can I change? I'm asking students all the time to do things my way, right? Come to the office, sit down with me for 30 minutes. Let's go over your resume face to face. Let's do this and that. But, this kind of flipped all that on its head. So, it's taught me to be more flexible and to realize that, doing things differently is a good thing sometimes.
Yes, it is. I think we have all learned a great deal. What about personally? Jason, we've all, we all have also been working somewhat remotely, sometimes in the office, sometimes from home, also dealing with family members who are also dealing with this public health crisis. Has there been anything particularly personally challenging to you in all this?
So I think that as time has moved on, I think that we're moving on close to 3 months now of working remotely and stuff. For me, I've learned that it's okay to not be as rigid in everything that I do. I sit at my table every morning at exactly 8 o'clock, and I get logged in, and I'm very structured with how I do my day. And I think I've realized now that it's okay to take 15 or 20 minutes and take the dog for a walk and come back and just to take better care of myself. I've learned that I don't know everything that I thought I knew. There's a lot that I don't know. And so I've been doing a lot of professional development courses. LinkedIn Learning had a lot of short courses. Some of them are only 30 minutes and you can move through those pretty quickly. And so I've learned that sometimes you don't know that you don't know, and you don't know as much as you thought you knew. And so I think that it's really taught me to be more open to change and adaptability and to professional development and learning new ways of doing things.
Yeah, good. All right, well, it's about this time in each episode that I say it's only fair. I allow my guests to ask me a question as well. So what is your question of me today?
So you've been at ASU-Beebe for just shy of 2 years now, and leading up to your arrival at ASU-Beebe, we'd kind of gone through a lot of changes. We'd had a chancellor right before you, and we had a pretty big turnover of personnel, and so you came in with huge responsibilities of kind of bringing everyone together, creating a sense of community and camaraderie, and then just all the different things that you had to do to strengthen the foundations of where we were. So my question to you is, what are some of your guiding philosophies and principles of leadership? How have you managed to kind of ground us as a college, as a team? And so what are some of your little pearls of wisdom that you would leave?
Well, I think I have some sayings that perhaps sometimes I say so often that I have to really stop and reflect and make sure I remember why that saying is important to me. And you mentioned one to me earlier before we started this episode. No one of us is as smart as all of us. I have tried my best to learn everything I can from every leader at every level in my life, professional and personally, and as I like to say, the good, bad, and the ugly. So I think I've learned a lot about what not to do. And I know that leadership is not a title, and so if you're into leadership for the title, then you have forgotten the principle that no one of us is as smart as all of us. It takes every single one of us, as we have certainly discovered in this pandemic, to make really wise decisions. And a part of that, no one of us is as smart as all of us. I say, let's look all completely around this issue, 360 degrees. Let's hear the perspectives. Let's hear the voices. What are we missing? And I know that frustrates. That's the basis of how I operate. And I know that sometimes frustrating. Can't you just make a decision? And sometimes you do. You have to make a decision. But making informed decisions and well thought out decisions, and hearing the perspectives of those who will be impacted by the decisions are important to me. And so I hope as we've worked through, for instance, one of the things we're doing right now is really taking a look at our shared governance body, which I inherited and immediately began to work with. It's a body called Cabinet. And one of the things we're doing right now is really looking at that and saying, is this the right structure? And is it representational enough? And what are we missing? Is there a different way? As you said, is there a little bit different way to do this than we have been doing it? And so those things have grounded me as I have worked in higher ed all these many years, a few more than 16. You said you were about at 16. I'm just a little, maybe almost double of that. But all those many years ago, when I started right here at this institution, when Newport was still a part of this institution as an adjunct faculty at ASU-Beebe and then moving into a full-time faculty position at Newport, I really tried to remember, as smart as I might think I am, no one of us is as smart as all of us, and those voices are really, really important. There's so many ways in leadership that you fail every single day. I think gratitude is very, very important. Recognizing the particular skills and talents and putting employees in the position to really utilize those skills and talents is really important. But you have to stay on top of it. You have to be constant. And here in year 2, in many ways, I'm still learning the institution and learning our personality and our employees and those sorts of things. And so, but I will tell you this, failures and successes alike, I'm very, very grateful to be here in this time and in this place at this institution with everybody. And 2020 is going to be a year, isn't it, that goes down in the record books as challenge after challenge after challenge. But I'm glad to be here tackling these challenges with this group of faculty, staff, and the students that we're not yet reaching who can benefit from an education from ASU-Beebe. And I think the future is bright, and the impact we can have is bright, because we do have faculty and staff who have bought into looking 360 degrees around everything and realizing that no one of us is as smart as all of us. Yeah. So.
Thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate that question very much. Well, okay. It's sort of try to end each thing on silver linings, and so I know we could talk all afternoon, Jason, on how we're doing things differently in advising, how we're doing things differently in career services. But what are some of those silver linings in the differences from this spring that we'll be able to take forward into the future?
So I think that in a very big way, this has forced me and my team members to get to know each other very much in a different type of way. I've had the privilege of working very, very, very closely with Tim Abbott in the testing center. And, Tim is in a different building than I am. And Tim, the structure of the testing center is so much different than what our structure is just in the Student Success Center. And so I've never really had the opportunity to get into the weeds of the testing, right? I know what tests we offer and how we offer them, but the weeds of why does Pearson do this way, and why does the EMT program do things this way, and what about the Wonderlic testing with the nursing students? And so diving into the weeds of what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and then working very closely with some of my team members like Tim Abbott. And so through that close relationship of digging deep into all of these policies and nuances of what services we're providing, I've gotten to know him in a very personal way. On Friday afternoon, we were having a telephone conversation about testing, and we kind of went down the rabbit hole of some of the things going on in his personal life, about his family. And I learned, about him being a missionary in Mexico, and him living in different countries abroad as a child. And so we kind of had some conversations on a very personal level that I don't know would have happened otherwise, just because I would pop my head in the door of the testing center and try to problem solve something. And then, so I think that one of the silver linings is it's really allowed me the opportunity to get to know some of my team members in a completely different way. And so I really appreciate that part of it. And, and I really appreciate the fact that I have been able to dive into testing a lot more. And so I have a much broader perspective of the testing world and community, as opposed to just, kind of the surface level of knowledge of this is what we do and why we do it. Now I understand it in a much more meaningful way. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, good. Well, but before we leave here, I want to tell you that I have greatly appreciated what you have done, the extra roles you have taken on, particularly with monitoring our mobile app. I started out a little ambitious and was trying to personally, we instinctually immediately knew, because students were doing it, that students wanted a lot of communication, and some of that was happening on the mobile app. And so while I might be putting out daily communications and by student email explaining things, when the question comes up for a student, that's when they need the answer, and that's when they look for the answer. And a lot of that was happening on social media and on the mobile app, and I was trying to self-monitor it all, and that became pretty quick. That became it became pretty obvious that wasn't the wisest thing. And it also became pretty obvious that the chancellor is not always the best one to be providing the answer, because, as you said, it's impossible for me to be down in the weeds of every operation all across campus on how things work for students exactly. And so we kind of ask you and your staff to kind of step in and just someone have an eye on the mobile app, and let's get those questions shuffled in the right direction and get those students answered as a service to our students, to be very timely about that in a very uncertain time. And they have been greatly appreciative. And Jason, I'm greatly appreciative to you for taking on and coordinating that role and doing a great deal of it yourself. I think it's going to be fun.
Happy to help. I've enjoyed it, actually.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think it's going to weigh, we've learned a lot about our students and how to better serve them. And can be a part of this overall research. that I'm trying to lead us in, and doing things differently and doing things better. And that's the important thing. Well, sir, it has been a joy to visit with you today. I really appreciate your insight. We didn't get to some of the other things in the student services area that we've been doing differently. So I will tap maybe a couple more of your colleagues as we go along here to talk a little bit more about some of those things. 15 minutes goes pretty fast, doesn't it?
It does.
So I really enjoyed it. On our next episode, however, I will have with me Dr. Jason Goodner. He's our Vice Chancellor for Academics. As you can imagine, here at the 1st of June, we are knee-deep in planning for the fall. We want to have a lot of flexibility for our students in the fall. We've heard our students clearly say we like being in class. We want to be in class. And so we want to talk with Dr. Goodner a bit about the options that we have for fall going forward for our students, and how we have plans to also keep us safe should we have to go remotely. We've learned a little bit this spring, and will make us a little bit better at going remotely should that have to happen for the fall. So I look forward to that conversation as well. Thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks, Dr. Methvin.
Have a great day.